A lot of people buy Mercedes-Benz cars, but what they really want is an AMG. We're here at the Streets of Willow Springs, one of the most fun tracks in Southern California, if not all of California, and we're going to drive a new car that AMG just came out with, the SLS AMG GT. The SLS is the first car designed and engineered by AMG. All other AMGs before this one started out as Mercedes-Benz products, and then AMG had at them. There are regular Mercedes, AMG Mercedes, and Black Series Mercedes AMGs. Confusing? This car replaces the SLS AMG by adding two letters, G and T, and more horsepower. It comes in gull-wing coupe or convertible form. Take your pick. Either one is going to make you happy. The top on the convertible is pretty solid. You won't have any issues with wind or road noise. The gull wings, well, those are icons, aren't they? Tough decision. This SLS AMG GT model replaces the SLS AMG model here in the US, but it also improves on it with a more powerful engine, quicker shifting 7-speed transmission, and a more responsive suspension. What have they done with this car?
A little bit more power. It wasn't really lacking before, but you'll never hear a driver say that's too much. So 20 more horsepower. Big difference for me, the biggest I think is in the transmission, the way it shifts, both in all the modes. In the manual mode, it's just much more instantaneous when you hit the paddle, both on upshift and downshift, just really, really crisp. But also, it's amazing how often it's in exactly the gear you wanted it in anyways. You know, it's downshifting under hard braking, it's downshifting for you. And then on the suspension, they've gone to Sport and Sport Plus. They've shifted the range up a little bit. Sport is the base and Sport Plus. Even on the racetrack, I've been running it in Sport. The other stuff is cosmetic.
Can you go faster with contrast stitching?
I can. So I think it's worth at least a tenth, you know. Alcantara inserts, probably a good half a tenth.
Among GTs, or Gran Turismos, this car is perhaps the sportiest. It can corner, it can brake, and it can blast off in a straight line with 583 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. If you want Gran Turismo and sport, this is your choice. It's more fun to drive than, say, a Bentley Continental GT or any of the Aston Martin, though those are pretty fun too. This is pretty much a sports car in a much larger, longer, more luxurious body.
The difference between this over the 2012 is this car takes a slightly different focus. So whereas the SLS, of course, is a super sports car, this has a slight more focus towards the track orientation, a little bit more sinister. So from an exterior differentiation standpoint, it comes with the forged wheels as standard, red calipers. We've blacked out the chrome. Of course, it has a GT badge on the back, so you know what it is. And then once you go onto the inside, we have a full GT livery, if you like, which is black mixed with Alcantara and red contrast stitching with red belts, piano black lacquer trim. But really, once you get under the hood, that's where the differences become. So they've added horsepower to it by about 20. So you've got 20 extra horsepower, which gives us a 0 to 60 time, reduces by 0.1 to 3.6. And then we've done some work with the gearbox and the behaviors of the gearbox. Faster shifts, more crisp, quicker force throttle downshift in the automatic modes. And then the suspension has been retuned. It's called it's our AMG adaptive suspension, so it's a coil-over, but the shocks are electronically controlled. The SLS is actually the first car wholly designed by AMG nose to tail. They started with a clean sheet of paper and said, AMG, if you wanted to build a supercar, what would you build? And it was this one. And in fact, it actually encompassed a lot of new technologies for us. It was the first all-aluminum construction car for us. So aluminum space frame, new technology. And then for us as well, it was our first dual-clutch transmission. So we have the dual-clutch 7-speed rear transaxle. So a lot of things got debuted with the launch of the SLS, and it kind of shows where we're going with the AMG brand.
So we just took several laps in an SLS AMG GT, and boy, that was fun. If there's a criticism here, it's that the throttle is not as linear as it could be. You step on it and wham, you suddenly get all that torque. It makes the car feel downright squirrely if you don't have the traction control on. If that's the worst thing you can say about a car, that it has too much torque, geez. Oh, and it costs something like $200,000. 2 complaints, but that's all. For Autoweek, I'm Mark Vaughn.
Catch all the latest auto enthusiast news at Autoweek.com, in Autoweek Magazine and iPad Edition. Talk with us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Autoweek USA.